Hello, Amber. It's so nice to have you on the show today. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me today.
Beautiful. And thank you so very much for being here. Just like I mentioned earlier, I truly appreciate it. And you see, Amber, oftentimes I love to thank my guests for two things. And I do this so often to the point where it has become an anthem for me. So, firstly, Amber, I want to say thank you so very much for investing in yourself. You see, you are on this platform right now because you did invested in yourself. And oftentimes, Amber, I love to make reference to the amazing mango tree. You see, some months back, I was on a particular road, and just by the roadside, there was this very tall, unattractive mango tree. And I use the word unattractive because the mango tree's got no mangoes on it, and the leaves were all dry. So I just walked past it and I went my way. But you see, Amber, just recently, I was on that same road. And this time around, a lot's changed about the mango tree. The mango tree
Mm.
caught my attention pretty good from a distance, and immediately I got the urge to move so close to it, of which I did, and it wowed me. Because now the mango tree's got a lot of mangoes on it, beautiful green leaves and healthy branches, and not just mangoes now, but I'm talking about ripe mangoes. It was such a lovely moment that day. I was so excited, so excited. Here is my point. The fact that you dedicated your time, energy, and resources to becoming the amazing Amber that you are today, that alone has made it really impossible for me to skip you. And that's why you got the request from me to be on the show because I was attracted to the fruit of all that you're doing. The way you're offering your solutions, your philosophies, your insight, and the impact your work is having. These stuffs are amazing. And just before you got the request from me, Amber, I said to myself, I've got to benefit from these beautiful things Amber is doing, not only me now, but even the audience. And here we had a day with the amazing Amber. So thank you so very much for doing that yourself. And secondly, thank you for saying yes to the invite. Because if you had said nope, there was nothing Elisha could do about it. Thank you so much. Thank you. Beautiful. So can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so let's get started. See, I'm quite excited to have you on the show today, Amber, for some reasons. Firstly, my interest in knowledge seeking. I believe in order for one to transition from a terrible situation to that of a beautiful one, I believe it takes the application of knowledge, quality information. And you see, Amber, ever since I discovered that light in the Hebrew means knowledge and darkness means ignorance, I've been so keen to knowledge seeking because I do not want to remain in the dark. So that's going to make our conversation today very, very important to me and even to the listeners. And the second reason why I'm excited to have the amazing Amber on the show is for the sake of the audience. You see, we live in an age where information is as abundant as grains of sand. We've got lots of information flying out there. So these folks trust me for quality, eye-opening, and very important information, of which I am totally convinced, Amber, that our conversation is going to be insightful and impactful. So, for that reason, let's get started with your introduction. Talk to us about your personal or your professional journey, because right now we are so curious. We want to know how Amber got here. Then, afterwards,
Mhm.
I've gotten some beautiful questions for you. Okay, Amber, over to you.
Yeah. So, hi, I'm Amber Abila. I am a binge eating coach, and I help women stop binge eating by rewiring their brain. So, a little bit about my journey and how I got into this work was back in 2015, I had decided that I wanted to lose weight. I wanted to get healthier, as a lot of people do. And I went to the internet, decided, okay, how do I lose weight? And I settled on calorie counting. It sounded like a good solution. I started calorie counting. But over time, I started to eat less and less because I wanted to lose more and more weight. And because of that, that led my brain to, I didn't know this at the time, but essentially freaking out because it wasn't getting enough nourishment in and it wasn't getting enough calories. And so my brain does what a lot of healthy brains do, and it sends out really strong urges for more food. So a couple months after I started calorie counting was when I had my first binge. And I remember it so clearly. I was around the Christmas time in the kitchen, and we had cookies around. And I decided, okay, I've been good. I've been losing so much weight. Let me just have one cookie. And I had one cookie, and then I got this really strong desire for more. So I had another and another, and I had 7 cookies all at once. And I was just flooded with guilt and shame. I felt so horrible. I felt like I had ruined it all. And I had vowed to myself, okay, that was not going to happen again. And then I was good for a couple of days, and then it happened a second time, and then a third time, and a fourth time, and it kept happening more and more until I was binge eating almost daily, and I was eating thousands of calories at a time, really just raiding my whole cabinets for any processed, delicious, yummy, sugary, carby foods I can find. And after a while, I realized that I was not going to get out of this on my own, and that I was really struggling. And so I went to therapy. But unfortunately, even after many, many months of therapy, I didn't quite feel like I had the full solution to my binge eating. A lot of times in therapy, they tend to go to the past, and I didn't really find any big insights from my past. I found a couple things, but I really felt like I needed more actionable tools. And so that led me to really doing research on my own and scouring the internet for anything I could find on how to stop binge eating. And I came across a blog once that described how binge eating was just a habit. And it was something that we felt triggered for. And then we had a urge to eat, and then we ate, and it reinforced the habit loop. And the second I started viewing my binge eating as a habit, everything changed for me, because it simplified what seemed to be this looming big problem with so many different complications to it, to something that was really simple, that as long as I started to understand how my brain worked, I could get out of. And so once I had that insight, I continued to dive deeper and deeper into psychology and the world of how our brain works and how we relate to food. I got certified as an integrative change worker, which basically means I use principles of hypnosis and NLP, visualization, which is used by CEOs and athletes in my coaching. And I really found that a combination of all those techniques in conjunction with viewing it as a habit and also learning the skills of someone who is a normal natural eater is what has helped me transform into someone who hasn't binged in over 4 years and has now helped hundreds of other people do the same.
Amazing. My favorite words, the last part, help. The fact that you're helping other people do the same, that's amazing. And that's one of the great traits of a true leader. And I like that. And I feel like this is a very important topic. So I'm still curious about this part. How can we eliminate food noise?
That's a great question. I actually just recorded a podcast of my own yesterday on this. So great timing with that question too. So food noise, when we think about what food noise is it is a collection of thoughts that we are having that are making us feel obsessed with the food, making us feel anxiety around food. And it's the quantity of these thoughts. So there's a lot of frequent thoughts about food that are not making us feel good. So that's when we describe this experience of food noise. Food noise is this newer term that has come about with the introduction of GLP-1s, such as Ozempic and Wegovy. People describe that as it's eliminating their food noise, but food noise is not a new concept. It's just kind of a new way of describing it. In my journey, I used to say things like, I feel like I'm thinking about food all the time. I just feel obsessed with food. I feel addicted around food. I just want to eat all the time. Like that's how I would describe this experience of food noise. And the first step to stopping food noise is to start to look at what are the thoughts that are going through your brain around food. What most people do when they have food noise is they just want to get rid of it. They want to get rid of it as fast as possible so they're no longer thinking about food. But that's actually the wrong strategy, because our food noise is telling us something. I'm a big believer that our thoughts are there for a reason. They are trying to communicate to us something. And so what we want to do instead is actually lean into the food noise and say, what is this trying to tell me? What are these thoughts actually all about? And then we can go into how about we can change them. So what that might look like is, for example, a few of my food thoughts would be a lot of questions around, well, am I being bad if I'm having a snack? Okay, so I would have identified the thought, am I being bad if I have a snack? And then I would go into starting to questioning it. okay, is it true that I'm being bad because I have a snack? And then I find evidence. Okay, no. Some people online say it's okay to have a snack. Some people say it can help so we're not overly hungry, maybe preventing a binge later. So then we can kind of start to take all these thoughts apart, break them down, ask if they are true. And then as soon as we start to solve for those thoughts, our brain will start to get rid of that food noise and it will start to lessen.
Wow, I got that. And thank you for making that very easy to understand. What a great explainer you are. Okay, let us look at it from the standpoint of therapy. Why doesn't therapy always work for people struggling with binge eating?
Mm-hmm. So therapy is amazing for a lot of different things. Don't get me wrong, I am not a therapy hater, but I just find a lot of my clients and myself included, I did go to a specific eating disorder therapist, but a lot of my clients, they might go to this general therapist who, specializes in anxiety and depression, but you're not going to always learn the specific tools and skills of these normal natural eaters. It requires a new skill set, and therapy, as I mentioned, tends to go a lot to the past. And that is useful to get some awareness of how these habits started. But once we have that awareness, our next thing we need to realize is, well, now that we have that awareness of how they started, how do we end them? And that's where I found that therapists kind of had that gap where I didn't learn the skills and tools that I needed. And I didn't learn, like I did in coaching, how do I take where I am now and go to that next level of where I want to be as someone who can just effortlessly listen to my hunger and fullness, who can eat in moderation, who can leave food behind. And that's really what I decided to implement in my coaching because I found that piece missing in the therapy world. Another thing I'll mention about that I'm thinking about is binge eating actually was not recognized as an eating disorder until 2013. So it is recognized in the DSM-5 as an eating disorder. We think that was, just barely over 10 years ago. Meaning in the therapy world, if you have any therapist that is trained before 2013, they were not taught during school about binge eating. And that is really important to know. And then even if they are certified and trained as a psychologist, a therapist, a counselor after 2013, it takes a while for the modern research in neuroscience to get down to the university level where therapists are taught. So sometimes there can be this gap and misunderstanding around what binge eating actually is and what causes it. That I find it can be pretty outdated.
Wow, 2013. Oh boy, I never knew that. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm still curious about this part too. I feel like your approach to this stuff is very, very effective. Can you talk to us more about how you help your clients, stop binge eating and start eating moderately?
Mm-hmm. So I take them through a 6-step process in my Confident Eater program. The first thing we work on is creating a positive food mindset. So this is where I kind of just mentioned about when we change the food noise, is really starting to break apart, like, what are my thoughts around food? How do they make me feel? And then when I feel that way, how do I act? And the biggest thing for that is to really start asking yourself, are these thoughts true? Because a lot of times we think a thought and we just believe that it's true. Oh yeah, it's true that I want to eat a lot of food right now. Oh yeah, it's true that I can't stop binge eating. And those thoughts aren't true. They are just thoughts, meaning that there are other people who wouldn't believe them. And so that means they can be changed. Then the second thing I walk people through is my signature trigger food process. So this is where I do help people eat anything in moderation. And we know that this is possible because if we look at these people that I call natural eaters, my younger brothers, I would consider natural eaters, where they will leave behind like 3 chips in the bag and put it back in the cabinet, or they'll eat half a cookie and leave it behind and it's no big deal. We went out for my grandma's birthday the other night and they, left part of their cake behind, and I did too nowadays, but it always fascinated me how they were able to do that. And so that, first of all, shows us that it's possible, that the food itself is not inherently addicted. Otherwise, everyone in the entire world would be addicted to it. And that's just not the case for everyone. So then there's something in play about our thoughts and the way that we're eating this food. And a lot of times people are overeating because they are coming from this place of restriction and scarcity mindset around food, where they feel like there's never enough. That no matter how much they keep eating, it's never enough because their brain has perceived that it's probably going to go away again soon. The diet's going to start Monday. We're going to get ourselves back into shape and we're going to cut out all these unhealthy foods. So that creates this idea of, I need to get it all in right now. Then the third thing I talk about is our urges. So our urges are that strong feeling and like craving we get right before we go into the binge. And I think I'm going to give you my free guided audio for the listeners, which is this audio that will help you stop a binge before it starts. And I use some of these techniques that I mentioned of visualization, of taking some deep breaths, of giving yourself some reminders that this is just a habit loop that's happening. It doesn't mean anything important, and it's safe to let go of. The fourth thing we work on is tuning into our hunger and fullness and listening to our body. So our hunger and fullness are our best calorie counters in the world. They're the most accurate ones if we learn to tune into them. I hear a lot of people saying that, like, well, I've tried listening to my body and I just overeat. But if you're overeating, you're not listening to your body, because your body will not tell you to overeat. That is painful to your body. And so if you tune in and start to turn that volume up, you'll learn that it actually doesn't want to overeat. The fifth thing I work on is being confident in your body. So this is a lot of work around releasing these societal expectations we have that we need to look a certain way and that we need to be a certain weight and size. And all of this pressure, it also leads to binge eating because it makes us feel like we have to be perfect in our body, around food. And then that can backlash in us wanting to like have that release around binge eating. And then the final thing I take my clients through, the sixth step of my process, is to help them maintain their progress. And we do that by shifting our identity. What that means is right now, if you are struggling with food, you probably have this thought of, I'm just someone who struggles with food, or I'm just a binge eater. This is just how I am. But when we do that, it makes it part of our core identity, which makes it very hard to change. So instead, we need to take it out of our core identity and say, in the past, sometimes I have binge eaten. In the past, sometimes I have not listened to my body, because that's making it as an action that we've done versus something about who we are. And that makes it easier to shift out of these habits for good and make these changes permanent.
Now I see why you're so good at what you do, Amber. Oh boy, these stuffs are profound. What a great approach. What a great approach. I love it. So to bring this to an end, Amber, what would you like to leave the audience with, like a final thought? And to those folks who like to reach out to you, join your programs, or learn more about everything we've discussed so far, how can that be possible?
I'm going to tie it back to your mango tree thing from the beginning, because I think that was so beautiful. To really know that if you feel broken right now, if you feel like there's no hope for you, if you feel like you're not growing, that doesn't mean you never will, and it doesn't mean you're stuck here. A lot of clients I see, they get in this mindset of, I've been this way for so long. I have clients who are in their 70s and have been binge eating for 50 plus years. And they think, maybe this is just it for me. This is just what I'm going to have to live with. But the science shows that our brains are neuroplastic, meaning they can change, and they can change at any age. You're not an old dog who can't learn new tricks. That's just not the truth. It doesn't matter how old you are, how long you've had these habits. They are changeable, and probably in a way that's much easier than you think. You might just be using the wrong tools. Like, diets are so rampant still. So many people are using Ozempic, and that's not a long-term strategy. There are so many other tools that, again, just haven't gotten passed down to the day-to-day level that we can use to get you out of these things. And you never know, just like that mango tree, maybe tomorrow or even sooner, you could have a big insight that changes everything for you and can get you where you want to be with your eating habits.
So true. So what about your contact info for folks who like to reach out to you?
Yes, thank you for that reminder. So as I mentioned, I will have that guided audio for you that will help you stop a binge in its tracks. This is something that I so desperately wish I had in my journey, because I just wanted someone to gently and lovingly yell at me to be like, hey, Amber, you don't want to binge. This isn't something you want to do. You always regret it in the end. And that's what I do through this audio. So you can get that for free. And then if you want to connect with me further, I have a free Facebook support group called Become a Confident Eater. So if you search that on Facebook, you can find it. And if you want to work with me on a deeper level, you can go to theconfidenteater.org, where you can find my podcast. You can find additional resources on how to work with me and coach with me one-on-one in my Confident Eater program.
Beautiful. So that's going to be the end of the show, Amber. Thank you for coming, and thank you for sharing this beautiful stuff with us. It means a whole lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Elijah. Thank you.